I always appreciate those that are both in person and online. And thank you for our faithfuls that are always here. I see several of you in the audience, and I just want to say thank you for your commitment to attend our city council meeting and be a part of what we're doing in the city. We do have a tradition that I love, and that is that we open in prayer. Craig Hansen, I think you're a regular. Thank you. Would you open us in prayer again? Thank you.
Everyone would like to stand with me, and since it is Christmas, Merry Christmas, City Council. A quick scripture here out of Isaiah, and this is something that was prophesied about 3,000 years ago, and so I want to read it to you. It says in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders." So take a little pressure off tonight, okay? "And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this." And those of us of Christian faith know that that was fulfilled 2,000 years ago with the birth of our Savior Jesus Christ. And so it is great to remember that in this time of year. And so with that said, let's pray. Lord Jesus, we just come to you and we thank you for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for the love that you taught us how to share and how to live out in our lives. And we pray, dear Lord God, that if there be anyone, even in this room right now, that is feeling discouraged about something, that God, your love, your Holy Spirit will just touch them and minister to them. I pray you'll bless this time. I thank you for these leaders, dear Lord God, that have been elected and put in a position that, Lord, they can take care of the city's business. And I pray that this will be a great night and that there will be smiles on everyone's face even as it is over. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much, Craig. Appreciate you. Well, before we do roll call, I just want to say we had an idea to wear ugly sweaters. And some of our council did better than others. I didn't do real good on my ugly sweater. I didn't have one. But thank you, guys. I think that you all look totally amazing tonight. Yeah, looking good.
I thought it was going to be a trick, and we don't show up.
No trick. Yeah. It's not a trick. If someone were going to win, I mean, there's some really good ones. Natalie, you're darling. Dale, would you like to stand? You just were, but I think you.
Some people have more ugly to work with.
Mayor,
You know what? It was appropriate.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Mayor, your chief of staff didn't quite get into the.
He does it well. Yeah. It's good.
But the finance director did.
Oh,
and
I'm
he's-
thinking, I'm looking finance. You're talking about
I'm
Rick.
talking about Rick.
But I'm talking about this one over here.
Yeah, he did
has
it
a
well.
hat.
Not as good as Dale.
You look great. The bow tie,
Yeah.
phenomenal.
So Rick wanted to be taken seriously when he did the public hearing later. That's why he's dressed the way he is. Yeah.
I want to know what Jacob's. I'm not sure what that is. So.
I remember like 20 minutes ago. This is my neighbors.
It's what you do. You run and knock on their door.
Yep.
Hey, that was awesome. Best story.
His wife is on the agenda tonight for library board.
Oh, there you go.
Perfect.
Okay.
So your neighbor must be
You have to
6'7",
recuse yourself.
400
Yeah,
pounds.
wearing the word.
So with that, shall we go ahead? Shall we start? I just thought we'd do that before we start. So thank you, guys. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Brunner.
Here.
Jingula.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Haverfield.
Here.
Bauer. All present.
Thank you. So we do have a couple proposed amendments to the agenda. The first one is we're going to move consent agenda item 13B, which is a subdivision short plat approval for Broadstone Townhomes. We're going to move that to new business. as it includes a waiver request for setbacks and a landscape buffer. So that's going to go to new business. And then item 6.3, which is the golf course agreement, is not taking place tonight. It's still in progress, unfortunately. We'd hope to have it done before the end of the year. So we will be removing that from the agenda and putting it back on a future agenda at some point. Other than that, I'm not aware of any other changes to the agenda. Yes, Councilman
The
Haverfield.
first item that you had was one,
It's 1.3 on the very first page, plat approvals. It's B,
B.
the short, subdivision short plat approval for Broadstone Homes.
okay, that's fine. I thought you said D, so.
Oh,
I
sorry,
didn't have a
yeah.
D. Okay,
Good
thank you.
point. Okay. So is there anything else? Okay, if not, I would stand for a motion to approve the proposed amendments to the agenda and the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
So the next item on the agenda is the public forum. And as we get started, before our very first thing on the agenda is the opportunity to honor Jeff Munchie. How are you? Good. So I think someone besides myself is sharing. And who is that? Chief King, thank you. You know, I love it when we have such amazing people, which we do have sitting out here, the gentleman in the front in the sweatshirt that's looking down, trying not to be acknowledged. Jeff, you know what? I know you're retired, but this is so cool to get to honor you. And I just want to say thank you for being amazing in your service. But we'll talk about what you're so amazing for now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm here speaking on behalf of Chief Carpenter in the Fire Protection District. Yes, recognizing retired Chief Muchie. So actually about a month or so ago, Chief Carpenter found out that there was an opportunity to recognize one of the members. It was actually statewide, thrown out to the organizations for the honorable or honor a first responder for the Idaho Potato Bowl is where it's going to be awarded to this week. And Chief Carpenter sent a letter, which I'll read for you guys, and Chief Muchie was selected out of all the applicants. And so tomorrow at the Idaho Potato Bowl, Chief Muchie and the rest of us will get to serve him an award that he's justly deserved, and we get to have fun and celebrate watching a cold football game tomorrow. So with that, I'll go ahead and start. This is a letter from Chief Carpenter. I'm going to get that down just a little bit. So it is my pleasure and honor to write you today with the recommendations of the Nampa Fire Department Division Chief Muchie, retired, for the consideration of the Honor a Responder Award. Chief Muchie recently retired from the Nampa Fire Department, and after nearly 30 years in the fire service career, he finished leading the Nampa Fire Training Division as the training chief. He was a true example of a servant leader, and above all his works in the fire service, he holds his family as the highest priority, being an amazing father and husband. Chief Muchie was dedicated to his department and served his community well. He served it with honor, integrity, professionalism, and throughout his career mentored countless future leaders in getting promoted to their roles. From the beginning of his career, he found his passion in training, believing that positive outcomes favor the prepared. And Jeff wanted to ensure that those that he served and served with always had the best chance of the great outcomes. Chief Muchie is also known to be an elite athlete. As many of you know, he has traveled the world as an Ironman and national champion in many roles at the national level. And today he's taken that passion and continues to coach at local high school track and cross-country teams. So during his career, Jeff was a change agent in so many avenues. Many of you may not know, but he was the spearhead, him and many others in our department were the spearhead for the health and wellness programs for peer fitness training. He assisted us co-workers in rehabbing injuries and preparing for physical and fitness goals. He worked with local health providers to establish fitness standards for firefighters throughout the state that now they serve literally the standards served across the state for all of us to be held to. He developed and instructed numerous training classes, including firefighter safety and survival. We call that RIT, Rapid Intervention Team Training. He trained many members across the state to protect and serve ourselves in the event that we had emergencies where one of us were trapped. He also responded and took part in many federal responses. He helped with Hurricane Katrina and many wildland fires throughout the United States. He was very instrumental in developing our first and most successful officer development program, company officer training in the department. And I think one of Jeff's legacies that he's continued to work on, that is, as he was preparing to leave the department, worked hard at and is continuing on in his retirement days, is the mental wellness program for our department. As many of you know, first responders across the U.S. and the world, we get to see and do some hard things. And traditionally, we don't address those very well. Jeff is pushing forward and working hard, and Gene as well, in making sure that it stays in our focus and that we take care of our people to get to retirement in a safe mental and physical aspect. So he's partnering up with local clinicians and now going across the state and training other clinicians in exactly what we do and some of the problems. So for that, we are super proud of him. And again, he was awarded the Honor Responder Award that will be given to him tomorrow at the Idaho Potato Bowl. So congratulations, Jeff.
Do you
I
want
have
to
to speak?
You don't have to,
Okay.
but we always like hearing from you.
Okay. No. Well, thank you. I think the biggest thing, obviously, right, I have been doing this a long time, and I started back in about 1992, which you guys, that dates me, right? But I think the biggest thing is I didn't do that alone, right? I mean, it's a department effort, it's a team effort, it's a family effort. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, nobody does anything in the fire service on their own. And so with that, I couldn't do it without, these are obviously my coworkers. They're also my really good friends. And we have an amazing thing at the Nampa Fire Department, Nampa Fire Protection District, and we've had for a long time. So it was an honor to serve the city for so long. I don't know, most of you know, probably some don't. I started in Twin Falls back in '94, went to school before that. Worked there for 5 years, and then I worked here ever since. So I worked here for almost 24 years. So I'd like to say that the 24 years were fantastic. I think, as you know, being a first responder, that number one, there are hard days, right? And there are ups and downs, and it takes a toll. And so I think, as Chief King talked about, what is so cool about what I get to do now is I get to give back in a different way. And so I gave to the citizens of Nampa for 24 years, and now I get to give to first responders across the state, whether that's police, fire, EMS, health clinicians, or Department of Corrections, everybody, the gift of hopefully being mentally well. And so we literally have been around the state twice in the last 7 months, and we're looking forward to sitting down with Senator Lakey here soon, and we're looking at bringing a bill forward to this year's legislative session. So we're hoping to bring some money forward so that we can have a bill that supports first responder mental wellness and either starts programs or continue programs for the next 3 years. So with that, I appreciate it. Not my favorite thing to do is be recognized. I'd rather just be working. So I must say, though, since retirement, I don't hurt. The stress is gone. Life is pretty good. So with that, thank you very much.
Jeff, thank you. Thank you to your entire family for taking time to come tonight. And I know you didn't have to because you'll all be there tomorrow, but thank you for it because it's important for us. And I just thank you for representing us so well. Your whole family has represented Nampa well, and we're thankful for that. But Jeff, thank you for continuing to give back and make a difference. And what I love about listening to you is that, as you said, it's not about you. And we know that. So you took one for the team, standing up here and getting recognized. But you know what? It's the faithfulness of getting up every day. And one thing I love about Nampa Fire, you guys are doing such a great job, amazing leadership, and we're still one. And I think that's the thing that people were concerned about when we moved to a district. But intentionality is important, and we're intentionally choosing to be one, and we are one. We are a team together, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the entire fire department district. Should say, it's hard to get that in there, but Jeff, thank you. Thank you. And you guys are welcome to leave. Yes, you don't have to stay. You're good. Bye. And do we have anyone else signed up?
Madam Mayor, we do. We have Martin Thorne, who would like to speak on a non-agenda item regarding police.
Martin, it's so good to see you.
Well, it's good to be seen and not viewed.
It's good. And you know what? If you want to come open us in prayer some night, let us know, because you could come open us in prayer and the pledge.
Mayor Martin Thorne, 8163 Limberloop Drive, Nampa. My concern tonight is in regard to a piece of property rental that I've had for some 30 years in Nampa. The rental people I've had there probably for the last 8 years, for the most part, was of no concern. Many times the rent was paid late, but I was able to work with them. Now the problem has been within the last 4 months. Actually, about 6 months ago, the main window in the front was broken out, and they said they'd replace it. It did not. But the individual man that was living there moved out about 2 years ago because he said he just couldn't get along with his partner, with the lady that he was there with. At any rate, he'd paid the rent several times for her. And there have been other male in that residence with this individual lady. But 3 months ago, there was no rent paid at all, and I've tolerated that for over 3 months. And I was very concerned, so it did issue a 3-day eviction notice, a legal papers thing through the state. And I did have the affidavit confirmed on that they would move out. Well, on about the 28th of November, they did move out. And I consulted with an attorney the fact that I could take possession of that, and I did change the locks. But I was very concerned about what the happenings that was going on there. And my issue here is that I did go to the police department with this issue, but I couldn't get beyond the front window asking for help for an officer. They says, well, we just don't do that kind of stuff. And I got handed a little card that said I had to take this to the county. And also with the county, I had to issue my concern with them and pay them $166. Well, I paid enough taxes to the city where I was kind of upset with that because I felt that I should get some help from the local police department. Days after that, I did call your office and talk to Mr. Hogaboam in regard to this issue, that I couldn't get beyond the desk or be able to talk to an officer at all. Well, it wasn't an hour later, and I got a phone call from an Adam Rowe, thanks to your staff. And he was concerned. He did come over and see the property. And when we went in the property together, it was totally demolished. A sledgehammer had been taken to every wall, to the refrigerator door, to the dishwasher door, to the range. Everything had been totally demolished within the residence. Now, my concern here is that I do feel that the lady who was there has real mental problems, and that should be a concern probably of health and welfare. Well, when I took access to the home and had the locks changed, I did find some papers that were left on the floor in there in regard that there has been issues with her, with health and welfare, and those should probably be followed up, because I totally cannot blame this lady 100% because she's not mentally there. And this could be confirmed by partners that have been there. And there's other issues that I could show about that. At any rate, when I took possession of it, and had that report from Officer Rowe, I was very concerned with that, and I tried to reach him after the insurance agency had gone there to see if I could get a follow-up. Well, here's my concern. Calling the police office on that non-emergency line, press 1, press 3, press 4, press 2, and if you're tired of pressing, press 1 again. Now, I exaggerate a little bit there. I've been known to do that. But I'm really concerned with the press 3, because what I was told eventually that this went to property crimes. And I couldn't get anybody on the phone to call me back. I've left messages there, not received a call back. And my concern there is that there needs to be a property crimes report for the insurance agency to be filed. And I just, at this particular point in time, I'm not getting that. And I think that we've got a wonderful police department, and I'm not here to criticize them because there's been too many events over the last 30 years where I feel strongly that we've got a good police department. But maybe we need to think about press 3, press 4, press 1, and have somebody that can get back to us on a quicker scale than that. I think I've basically hit without going into too much detail.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate it. And we will follow up on that exactly.
Well, I'm waiting now for a call from property crimes. I think that's the correct division.
Okay. Rick, can you help us follow up with Martin and just make sure that this gets done, if you don't mind helping from a citizen standpoint?
He's been a big help.
I know.
He got me past the glass.
Thank you. Rick, thank you. Martin, thank you. Really appreciate you coming and sharing that. That's important. Is there anyone else?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, at this time, we don't have anyone else signed up to testify on an agenda or non-agenda item. Is there anyone here that had intended to, that did not have the opportunity? Okay, seeing none, we do not have any proclamations this evening. And I don't believe we have any agency reports, but we do have staff communications, and Jeff Barnes is here with a staff report.
Thank you,
Hi,
Mayor.
Crystal. How
Hi.
are you?
Jeff got a little shorter. Not quite as festive, though. I'm really digging his scarf. Merry
Yours is
Christmas
good.
to all of you, by the way. I just wanted to kick it off a little bit, start with talking about our streets division. They've been really busy this past month trying to clear our roads. We've had 2 snow events. Both of them were just condition 1s at this time, and we've put down just over 67,000 gallons of brine, which equates to about $61,000 of product. So they've really been working hard. They put in over 178 hours of overtime just in those first 2 snow events. So our streets team has done a great job. I'm really, really proud of them, and they'll continue to work to keep the traveling public safe. And then with that, I want to introduce Jeff Barnes, Director of Wastewater. to give an
So
update.
Crystal, I don't know, staff, council, if you've had the opportunity to really get to know Crystal, but she's doing an amazing job. I tell you what an asset to the city. And if you could communicate to our streets team, they've done a good job. It's just so nice to see the streets cleared, and, you know, it's maybe not perfect for every single person and individual, but they've done a good job, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for
Thank
your
you so
work.
much.
Appreciate it. Evening, Jeff. Like your scarf.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I concur about Crystal. That was an excellent hire. She's amazing. So we have a small city under construction, our wastewater treatment plant. Every day it amazes me how much gets done, but I want to give a brief update on that. The project is expanding at 30% done construction-wise, and then we're about 40% done of spend rate, so we're right on schedule. The largest progressive design build in the state, the largest recycled water project in the state. So, but if you say that here and you say, well, it's kind of hard to picture it. So we have a video for you, and this is coming up on our 1-year anniversary of the construction starting. So I just, I hope you appreciate this, the work that went into this time lapse. Did you see me practicing before? I just want to say, all right, okay. We did, yeah, all right. See, that's pretty cool, huh? So much work is happening right now. In fact, if you go down there, the cranes are up and they're still rolling even in the winter season. So really appreciate the work of our staff, Shannon Johnson and the team, and also the DRC. I know the mayor is part of that. Councilman Bruner and Councilman Haverfield, appreciate your help in the Citizens Advisory. There are a very good team on the Design Review Committee that kind of looks at these issues we have and then presents recommendations to the city council. But I want to, before I go, there's one thing I just want to give you a heads up as a council that's coming. The second meeting in January, we are going to be presenting an item for decision. So first of all, when we started the project, there was one element, which was the recycled line that was out of the lump sum bid because we didn't have enough information. So we wanted to move forward with construction. We did. We saved a tremendous amount of money by beating the really difficult construction window that would have happened if we'd have waited another 6 months. But with that, we have updated numbers on the recycled line. So we have 3 options for you to consider. It's going to be in your packet. I don't have nearly enough time to talk about it right here, but I want to let you know that it's going to be in the packet for the 17th of January. And if you have questions, I will sit down and go through those individually. I know that the mayor and Councilman Bruner and Haverfield were at the last DRC meeting where we talked about it. But that's exciting because that's really the last big decision we have, and we can roll through the rest of the construction. So with that, if you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Jeff, great work.
Okay, thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to new business. Our first item is an action item, and this is to confirm the appointments of Mike Grimm and Ben Echeverry to the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee for 2-year terms expiring on January 6, 2025. They're replacing expiring board members Ron Van Acker and Jeff Cornelius.
So moved as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bruner.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And unfortunately, I don't know Mike and Ben. Are you here? So there you are. Guys, thank you. Do you want to come up for just a second? Introduce yourselves. And thank you for serving. Thank you. Thank you for serving. So you are?
I'm Ben
Ben?
Echeverry. I guess my background is in electrical engineering. And yeah, I've been a resident of Nampa for a little over 5 years now and just been looking for a way to serve my city, serve my community. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working on the Impact Fee Advisory Committee.
That's great. Thank you so much. And it's so nice to meet you and have you on board.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And how do you say your last name again?
It's Echeverry.
Echeverry. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike?
Thanks,
Good.
Mayor, Council, very nice. Mr. Lakey, it's good to see you. Mike Grimm, I've been a resident of Canyon County off and on my whole life. Nampa the last, I don't even know, 10+ years specifically. So I try to give back exactly where I can, and I think this is one of those areas where I can give back to our community and help as we grow and thrive in the future.
Great. Well, it's nice to meet you. Thank you for coming, and we appreciate your willingness to
very nice.
serve.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Okay, item 6.2 is an action item. This action is for the city to consider remanding the alcohol licensing decision regarding La Copa back to the Alcohol Review Committee for further proceedings, and I would like to ask Todd Lakey to introduce this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. As you know, we heard the recommendation of the committee at a previous city council meeting, and the initial decision was to pursue suspension for a period of time. But as we went back and looked at some of the points raised by legal counsel, we felt like they were legitimate questions relating primarily to their ability to review some of the evidence that was used in the decision by the committee. And this request or recommendation would be to remand it back to the Licensing Review Committee to have them conduct further proceedings, have the license holders have the ability to review that evidence and then make another decision and recommendation that would come back before this body, whatever that may be. It may be the same decision, it may be different, but this would put it back to them to conduct another proceeding and give them that opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. So this really isn't an item that involves much discussion. It is an action item, and with the recommendation for the city to remand the alcohol licensing back to the committee.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, yes?
Question. Is this a time-sensitive decision?
Yes.
Okay, is that, we didn't have anything in the packet that spoke to what the turnaround time, is there a direction to remand it back to get something back before us, a date certain?
I'd like to ask Rick Hogaboam to answer that question. The question was, is this time sensitive? When could we reconvene that committee to get a decision back to this body? Jamie and Jamie Burns is here, so.
And the clerk, which is helpful because they're official record keeper of kind of keeping track of the clock. The ordinance does have some time specifications about when the clock starts, how long there is to an appeal. On the remand, you know, I think as legal said, it will go back to the alcohol review committee, will convene. And I don't know, Shar, if you have right off the top of your head, how many days a final decision with findings of fact have to conclude. So I would defer to the Shar.
Madam Mayor, Council, unfortunately, I don't have an exact date. I want to say it's mid-January, so I think it would be very difficult to hit the 60 days, not just with ARC, but also to come back.
Correct, yeah. We knew it was sometime in mid-January. And also, the Alcohol Review Committee actually assesses points and, you know, closures and not to exceed, say, a month based on findings that move into like a significant category. It came before the council body because it moved to a significant category with the recommendation of a revocation, which can't happen by the committee's decision by itself. So that's where it went to you. I think it would help, I think the Alcohol Review Committee, if it goes back, if it's remanded, if we're recommending something to come back before council, or if the Alcohol Review Committee say we're to find, you know, closure for a certain amount of time within its provision, I think they would have to appeal that for it to come back before council, or that decision would stand. So that's where I think some clarity would be good as far as on the process.
The motion on the table is for the city to remand the licensing decision back to the committee. The question was, is there a time frame? If it's okay, I would like to suggest that we convene the Alcohol Review Committee, possibly the first week of January, not wait until your regularly scheduled meeting so that it doesn't set a long time. Is there a reason why we cannot do that?
Madam Mayor, I think you could include that in your request. I don't know that you're prohibited from doing that just in the interest of time, but you also want to make sure, I think that would still work, give them the opportunity to review that additional evidence and work with legal counsel on how that's put forward.
Okay.
Mayor Klein?
Yes.
I have a question regarding time. So, Todd, are they serving their 2-week, or are they open?
No decision. It's been remanded back, so
Okay,
there
so
is
they're open now.
nothing. Yes, they're
So we
fully
don't
open.
have a time factor issue right then, do we?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and that was my concern. Is there a burden on the proprietor, or is there a burden on the committee reconvening, just so that we know that it's expedited and not just being drug out over a period of time, so that
Correct.
everybody knows the direction? So if that's in the language of what's in the documentation that we don't have, I just was asking for that.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Haverfield and Rodriguez, this would be essentially going back to them to conduct a new, fresh hearing with that additional information and opportunity. They aren't currently closed. The decision isn't final. This would be, again, a new hearing and a new recommendation depending on what happens in the committee. So I think your remand can simply say, you know, please conduct another committee meeting as soon as practicable, or something like that.
and ensure that the video information that the committee saw, that LaCopa has that same opportunity to review that information.
Mayor, I'll amend my motion as stated by legal and yourself.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
The next agenda item is item 6.4, is that we've taken 6.3 off the agenda. 6.4 is an action item, and it's to authorize the following actions. It's the addition of Avenue Consultants to the request for qualifications first choice hiring roster, for the mayor and public works director to sign a miscellaneous professional services term agreement with Avenue Consultants, and 3, for the public director's works director to sign a task order for the Midland and Iowa Roundabout Environmental Evaluation with Avenue Consultants in the amount of $29,958.41, time and material not to exceed. This has been approved in the FY23 budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
I have a question. Not sure who to address it to.
Crystal?
Crystal? I didn't see it in the packet, but was there more than one consultant that was, that had the opportunity to put a bid in on this?
So this was a direct select. We've kind of talked to the other consultants in the valley, and they're pretty tapped for something this small. So this gave us an opportunity to bring somebody else in and try someone new, where it's such a small dollar amount.
I just know that, you know, it's not an easy thing to get on the first choice roster. And so, you know, them being brought in, given that opportunity, are we setting a precedent for others? And I mean, there's a lot of different disciplines that there might be opportunity presented to them as well if you're reaching outside of that roster that's set, I mean, for 2 years. And I just know from our standpoint, I've been on that roster, how hard it was to get on it the first place, and then I can't be selected for anything just so it just can, you know, keeping that in a progression. I just know how hard it is to get on that roster and keep yourself in good standing. So advancing someone to a first choice hiring roster caught my attention. So that was my concern as to why. And if you reached out and asked them to provide a bid, are you going to be able to do that for other, like general contractors and different contractors that you might not have on your roster right now?
So in this case, it was specifically regarding environmental clearances with the federal aid process, which kind of narrows the pool down. But I do believe we did reach out to our first choice rosters, and they were
too busy.
They were a little busy, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? We did have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 6.5 is an action item, and it's authorizing the following actions. And Crystal, I think you're going to speak to this tonight, so you can go ahead and come up as I read it. It's to authorize the following actions. 1, for the Public Works staff to submit applications in FY23 for grant funding for city transportation projects, and the mayor to sign a letter of support and commitment for those projects listed for inclusion within the funding applications, with the intent to commit matching funds if awarded and subject to approved appropriations.
So move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And so maybe we don't, but keep standing there, don't go anywhere. Does anyone have any questions for Crystal regarding the funding and the grants? And I see no, so,
Mayor, for anytime we're going after grants, I'm not going to vote against that. So.
perfect. Okay. Seeing,
Well, yes.
The only question, Mayor, that I would ask is there any matching funds from the city that we have to obligate ourselves to for the grants that we're going after?
yes.
Yes, there are. So I'd like to direct your attention to page 152 of your packet. It is a table that shows a summary of all of the grant pursuits that we have, as well as what the matching funds would be if we were awarded. However, I will caveat that this table shows all of the pursuits that we are going after, not necessarily all the ones that we're getting. So we'll come back to council if we are awarded any of these grants with requests for funding approval and match.
So we can choose to not accept the grant if we want to.
At that time, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Crystal. Roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Ingula,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 6.6 is an action item. This is to award the bid and authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the pump maintenance and electrical upgrades FY22 project with Lane of Idaho in the amount of $468,902.34, and it is approved in the FY23 budget.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ingula,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 6.7 is an action item. This is to award the bid and authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the Zone B sewer rehab for, in the FY23 project with Iron Horse Pipeline Services LLC in the amount of $944,633, and it is approved in the FY23 budget.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Questions?
I have a question, Madam Mayor. I don't know who could answer this for us. I assume that there's a performance bond associated with this project?
Madam Mayor and Councilman, yes, there's a one-year warranty period on the work.
Okay. And then a bid bond as well?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at the difference in the numbers. It's pretty significant. They left a lot of money on the table. And that always makes me a little bit nervous whether or not we're going to get a good job. So sounds like we're covered.
Yeah, Councilman, we usually go back and we do a little investigative research and talk to the bidder if there's a gap.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Just other quick question. Iron Horse Pipeline Services, have you had contracts with them in the past?
Councilman, in my understanding, I don't believe we have.
Are they out of Boise?
We had one year? Okay, I've been out of that one. So it sounds like 1 year we've worked with them. Do you have any information on? Okay.
Are they out of Boise?
I can get that information.
They're out of the valley. That's not that they're out of the Treasure Valley.
I can get that information for you, Councilman.
As long as you're okay, the fact that they can perform and are going to provide the labor material payment bonds that, and the other bonds that were mentioned, so.
Yeah,
should be
the
fine.
CIPP process, there's not a lot of contractors that do it. But the process is super beneficial for our system because we don't have to rip up roads and we can renew the lines with a limited impact to the citizens and roads and traffic.
Not sure if anybody else heard what you just said, but I understood what you were saying.
You put your mic closer to your mouth.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, excuse me. Mayor and City Council, so the process, it relines the pipes. We don't have to get in there and remove them and replace them. So it just provides a relining of an existing pipe, so it's a great process for the city.
Thank you.
It is a great process, and it also is so much more cost-effective, where we've seen our sewer line install going up literally by millions per mile. This process, we've not seen the price escalation at the same pace. And it's a totally different process because it's going in and lining those existing pipes. And so I think that's one reason why we're seeing a bid range that's so much better than anticipated, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, Mayor, if we would replace the pipe has gone up 3 times in the last couple of years, so we would see that in our bid prices. One other thing on this process is we have older manholes, and they can do the same thing as in a manhole. They drop a sleeve in there, they seal the outside of it, they cut it out. It's a pretty fast process, but it's great for rehabilitation of our sewer system.
Just as a follow-up question, are these all gravity lines?
These are all gravity lines, yeah.
Great. Any other
Okay.
questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Next item, you'll probably be up.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question on that one.
Okay, so roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 6.8 is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor and the Public Works Director to sign a task order for the attached scope of work with JUB Engineers for the Purdom Trunk Sewer Extension Project Design Services in the amount of $1,140,348. Time and materials not to exceed. It is approved in the FY23 budget. And this is one that it's costing a whole lot more than we did have budgeted, which is the difference between putting in a sewer line versus lining like that last request was, which is just putting a liner in that pipe. So, yeah. Did you have something you wanted to share with us,
I
Jeff?
will give you a little bit of background. If you have questions along the way, Mayor and City Council, please let me know. First of all, this is a proposal for JUB to do a design on Ustick Road with a sewer extension into the northeastern portion of the city. Why is this important? State Highway 16 is being extended from I-84, and there's gonna be an off-ramp at Ustick. And so that project is under construction right now. Once that project is there and you see traffic coming off onto Ustick, you're gonna have more and more interest in that area. So there's gonna be growth one way or the other. It's in our master planning process. This area has been within the extents of our sewer treatment capacity area. So there's two ways we could do this. One, we could allow, or we could wait for developers to kind of do piecemeal projects. Some of the challenges with that is that this is a 30-foot deep sewer in Ustick. So if we did a half mile at a time or 1 mile at a time, then you're having these impacts continually, and it's a real struggle. If you been around for about 5-6 years, we did another project with a 30-foot deep sewer in the north side of town. It's a Purdom project, and it took out the entire road. I mean, there was a hole in that road from the people's front door to the other people's front doors across the street. It's a significant, serious project. So the other way is that we would put in a capital project, and this proposal is to design that project. You're not approving construction of that project tonight. It's just the design. The design is what we want to do to get ahead of it. It is a significant design and a significant cost. The design cost is $1.1 million, and we had $3.5 million in the budget to actually construct a portion of that. So this money here is actually in a different funding category, but it was approved already. And then moving forward, we have considered options on how to pay if we want to continue with the construction of this massive project, and it is expensive. We started a utility impact fee program, and this was last year. We anticipate if we have a really boom year like last year, we could bring in as much as $4 million a year with impact fees, and we can use 100% of the impact fees on a project like this to get the sewer out into these areas. So I know you may have some questions with this. I'll stand for any questions you might have, and also Caleb is here from engineering, who's done a great job working on the details of it. So the design-wise, Caleb can help also.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. And first of all, this is going to be paid by the utility impact fees, correct? And so it's not a 50% match from the city of Nampa like we do have to match impact fees. This one is specifically 100% for development, right?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, so the design will be paid for out of the existing fund. If we choose to construct it, one of the plans is that we would pay for it with impact fees. We can use 100% of those, but we just started the program, so there's not funds in that account yet. It needs to build up. It could build up faster if we have great growth out there, slower if we have a down year. But we were talking about it with a fast year, it's like $4 million a year. So we would have to borrow from our enterprise fee, our fund balance there to front that money and then be paid back with the impact fee dollars as they come in, as development happens.
Okay, so let's follow up. So it says here that the project is, one, the utility impact fee, CIP, and fees are being collected to reimburse the city enterprise funds. Is that going to be pushed onto our taxpayers?
Okay, our anticipation is that impact fees are they're paid by developers. There are goals to have growth pay for growth. And so we were the first city in the state to have an impact fee established. The program is building now, so, but those dollars come from developers. They come when you pay your building permit, you pay a portion of that. So it is developer-driven dollars that come from an impact fee.
So what do you think, the return on our investment, because what we're doing basically, we're sending out this money without a real set forth base plan of how to pay for it. So that kind of worries me a little bit. But I agree that the growth has to move forward. I understand that part of it. But what I'm concerned about is that us throwing out that money and not knowing what our investment will be given back to us. And you're saying 15 million per year, but that's only after development is completed. That could be 20 years from now, right?
Mayor and council, I can respond to that quick. So this is, and that is still, there needs to be discussion on how we're going to pay for construction if we do. Tonight is just the design, but I think it behooves us to get ahead of it on the design because, like I said, if we just did that in piecemeal and the design's 1 mile at a time, we can't design the whole system the way we want to. So yeah, there's probably more conversations that have to be had, obviously, on the how are we going to fund construction. We're just looking through, this is a way we could fund that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, I have, oh, go ahead. Thanks. So it says in here that you guys did, you completed a return of investment. I didn't see it in here. I'm just wondering how that happened, like what was calculated for that return of investment to happen?
We did some initial, Councilwoman, review. So we took if that whole area was expanded and built out to its maximum capacity, it would bring in like $15 million annually in total property tax. But we need to talk through that and really refine those numbers to make sure they're close. So that we've done, and then we did the other analysis on how much impact fee would come in based on growth. And so we have this $15 million annually we have in your write-up, and then also that $4 million a year is if we're really growing, we can repay that $15 million over, say, 6 or 7 years, depending on how fast it comes in.
So the 6 or 7 years is in repayment is if it's at full capacity and we're bringing in 15 million a year. But if we bring in 10 million a year, then that number's going to stretch out, correct?
Correct. Or if we have different funding sources we choose to allocate it from, that's where the additional conversation comes in on the funding for the construction.
So those enterprise funds that we're borrowing ahead of time to front this, do we anticipate it taking how long to reimburse those funds?
$15 million, I mean, you can say it's going to be maximum 6 years, 5-6 years if things really take off, but it's probably going to be longer than that. And remember, so this is just the design tonight. We're not talking about the construction yet, but those are the serious conversations we have to have downstream on return on investment and more analysis on that. So we're just trying to we know this is going to be the design of the future, and we want to get going on that. We have the funding available to get on top of it, so we want to be proactive.
It's important that we understand tonight's is for the design, that the return on investment, that is something that is calculated based on what the anticipated build-out is. Some of that was put in as a potential loss of revenue as part of the reason why we ran those calculations, because this particular corridor, USTIC, Ada County, once you go past Canada, is on the north, we're on the south. And depending on how long it takes for us to get there, all those properties could annex into Meridian. So that 15 million is actually as much of a lost revenue potential discussion. And that is long-term to the city of Nampa. If we lose that property and we don't have infrastructure to serve it, and they decide to annex and move over into Ada County and annex into Meridian, that is permanent lost revenue for the city of Nampa. And so that's why it's important to go ahead and look at the design, to get the design done at one time so that we know what we're working with. And then the next step is to identify how long is it going to take us to get there? Do we have the funding to get that done? And then really to look at that return on investment. So I hope that brings a little bit of clarity to this particular discussion. Councilman Haverfield?
Okay, architect asking an engineer a question. Codes are, as far as in my world, they're updated every 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years. So how long is this design by this engineering design good for? Is there going to be some point in time where they're going to be adjusting? They'll have to go back and reevaluate, update any documentation. Is that an issue with the engineering side?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, so we have done a master plan that calls out for the pipe size that we need, and Caleb Leclerc is in the process of leading that right now. So we have a real good understanding of what size pipe we need. We know the area, and then we know the type of pipe hasn't changed for a long time. I mean, you can put in PVC. The design flows have been around for a long time. So really, the grades in the road, the backfill material, all that stuff, it's pretty consistent that
So
it's going to
the-
stay this.
So the engineering design effort will be sound for a period of 10 years or more?
From my opinion, yes, at least.
Okay, because that's a concern, obviously, if it had to be updated in 3 years and we see a recession and no activity out in that area, then, it's a lost cost to us, so.
Caleb, do you have any input? Do you have anything else to add?
No, that's fine. I
Or
think.
correct me?
Yeah.
Good.
Like I say, I deal in a different world with the codes. The other question I was going to ask is, property north of, is that, what is the east-west, what line is that, or what street is that?
The east-west is Ustick? and then
Okay,
the- yeah.
Ustick. So north of Ustick is Ada County, correct?
North of Ustick, east of Canada
Canada.
is Ada County.
And is this being placed on Ustick?
This is going to be placed on Ustick and like.
Okay, so
yeah.
my question is, can we expect development that's north of Ustick to participate in the cost long-term of this line extension? I mean, if we fund the design, we're funding it on our nickel, not on Meridian's. We're making that decision as far as the benefit to Nampa. But reimbursement model for development north of Ustick, we're not going to see that, or will we see that as a part of the investment?
This runs the trunk, Councilman, this runs the trunk line. North of there, it'll be developer-driven unless we want to do the same thing to run it up towards the Boise River. That's a different discussion, but to answer your question, as development comes in, we haven't talked about how to pay for construction, but
Right.
we could design that to have some of those elements in that, and into paying that back, but so at this point, the only proposal we put in here is on impact fees, which would be growth driven and
Okay,
playback.
so what my point is, Meridian will benefit at our cost. If we're designing the line,
They've already got a line.
they have a separate
They're already
line?
done,
So this is only for south of Ustick?
yes.
Okay.
This is for us
Yep.
only, not for
Okay.
Meridian.
This is
That's
for
the
us.
challenge
didn't
we
catch
face.
that.
Meridian already can accommodate, I believe, because the new high school is there and some development is there. Meridian already has sewer in that area. Is that
So are
correct?
there parallel lines, or are they bringing a line in from a different location?
I'm going to hand it off to Caleb here.
Okay.
He's-
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we shouldn't be having this conversation with Meridian in the room, so.
Yeah, so Meridian sewer comes from the north and then
Yeah.
comes south. So their sewer lines aren't in Ustick Road proper.
Okay.
And again, this sewer line is sized just for Nampa ground. We have what's called sewer basins, which are a
Right.
defined area. Generally, they're geographically contained by topography or drains or laterals that restrict how far the gravity pipeline can extend out. So this sewer is sized specifically for the Purdom Sewer Basin in the city of Nampa.
Okay, and that would be south of Ustick.
Yes, there is a portion of ground north of Ustick, but only within the city impact area that is
And that would be
west of
west of
Canada.
Canada.
Correct.
Okay, that was my concern, because I know that the Purdom station had limitations. And if we were looking to hook into that, how many, is it EDUs? I can't remember the term, but,
Yeah, so the Purdom lift station was designed as a interim lift station with an intent to upsize. So that's always been in the city's capital plans to upsize the Purdom lift station to support these trunk extensions.
Thank you.
Mayor, just while these two are up here, so clarification. So if Meridian's already in place, and this is not going to happen overnight, as far as design, number one, is lengthy, and then, of course, once we decide on construction. So what prevents property owner south of Ustick of deciding, and a developer just deciding to go ahead, since the infrastructure is close, to just go ahead and ask Meridian to do this, other than Meridian being nice to us?
I'd like to answer that
Yeah,
question, if I
thanks.
might. That has already happened. And Meridian has said no. And we've got a good working relationship with the
understand,
city of Meridian. And so it's nothing more than Meridian, the mayor, and city council determining they're going to respect our property boundaries.
I'm just
That's
wondering
it.
if next election or what, with different mayor or different whatever, 3-4 years, there's no guarantees, is my point, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
I
I
would
mean,
say,
there's nothing written, no written contract from a legal standpoint. It's just municipality deciding what to do at a later time. So it's a gentleman's agreement. Or I probably can't even say that anymore, can we? Okay.
Not with that sweater on.
I would say another benefit of getting the design done is that we do have a number of developers that have had a lot of interest in this area. By having the design finished, it makes it a little bit easier to communicate with these developers. They may pick up the baton and decide to build it for us because the
Okay.
line is designed.
Well, the return on, this is important. I totally understand. I agree with the mayor totally. I just want to make sure that we're in communication and keeping good terms with Meridian, and maybe we'll even work with Star. Huh? Okay, very good.
Mayor, could I add a comment? From the finance perspective, you've got a long-term cost and a long-term revenue issue right here. You need to develop, and we can partner with Jeff to do this, develop what's the long-term revenue picture and the long-term cost picture. You compare the two, and then you look and see what the cost benefit is to the city. But now immediately, it seems like the risk of not doing it is greater than the risk of doing it. So, right, but we want to get down that road. We have that in-depth analysis, but we're not quite there yet.
Because it's a one-time cost, but it's a long-term revenue.
Exactly.
Yes.
Mayor, I'll make the motion if we're ready. Are we ready for this? Okay,
Yep.
since it's public hearing time.
Yes.
Authorize the mayor and public works director to sign task order for attached scope of work with JUB engineers for the Purdon Trunk Sewer Extension Project design services in the amount of $1,140,348.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, really quickly, just after Doug's comment there, I just want it on the record that, you know, if we end up having a recession, he can't blame us for any gray hair this may cause him.
Well, this might cause gray hair, but in the long term, it'll be nourishing.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Pingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Sauer.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
I'd like to very quickly, even though it's 6:30, go through a couple more business items so that some staff doesn't have to sit here for a long time. Crystal, I don't know if you're here for the entire evening, so let's go ahead and move to 6:9, and this is, it's an action item to ratify the approval to proceed with temporary paving at the Birch Lane and Franklin Boulevard roundabout and authorize the Public Works Director to sign the winter shutdown construction contract change order in the amount of $200,000. I think, were you ready?
Well, yeah, I'll make a motion, and I do have a question as far as, we're wanting to go out to reimbursement for this, because I understand there was maybe, at least in our opinion, there was some lack of sense of urgency on this business's part. So what, I guess my question is, and no one has a crystal ball, but what's our chances, or maybe legal needs to, as far as getting this reimbursement at a later time? And we have to do this for the citizens' standpoint in this area, but what's our opportunity to get reimbursement?
So we put them on notice. Lumen is the utility company that caused this delay. So we put them on notice on November 11th. We sent a formal letter to them, certified. So they were aware of it. They've been in communications the entire time. They were very aware of the liquidated damage days and things like that.
I mean, have they stated in any form, or I take it there's no written form, that they're willing to?
They have not agreed to reimburse us, no.
And so, Mayor, if I may, so legal, what's our next standpoint as far as, what's our next move, I guess is what I'm asking?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Berner, I guess I'd have to look at the agreement and see.
Okay.
If we have liquidated damages provisions in there, and they're past that, that's some leverage.
Okay.
If it's outside the scope of,
Well, I'll make the motion, like I said, because from a citizen standpoint, they have to have proper roads. But hopefully we'll go after this and go after this hard.
I would note that we have not given them a bill yet, an invoice. Our intent was to wait until the very end, so it's all inclusive, so we're not
Okay.
asking twice.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to ratify the approval to proceed with temporary pay then authorized signing of the winter shutdown construction contract change order in the amount of $200,000. I think that's all that's needed on that.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor, I have a couple questions. So what was the delay from the 17th where they weren't able to work to the 11th for the notice that was sent?
So Lumen had an overhead utility that wasn't able to be moved, and they had to go back, and they missed it, basically. So they had to do some re-engineering and things like that, and as soon as they moved the pole out of the way, then our contractors were able to get back on board again. So they worked diligently until plant shut down, and then we missed the paving window.
So my question is, how come we waited so long to send them a notice?
I
That
don't know
makes
the
sense.
answer to that question. I sent him a notice about 3 days after I was informed of the delay.
Okay, and then as far as the LDs go, are they in the GC's contract or are they in the city's portion of it?
They're in the general contract, I believe.
Okay, so the general contractor was in charge of notifying CenturyLink then and not the city?
Correct.
So it's going to be their problem to collect this money?
I mean, partially. We will have some additional costs to do like cold weather concreting and plus the temporary pavement that we will be in charge of collecting, but it will most likely be a joint effort.
Okay. I appreciate what you had to say about waiting till the end to get the bill together.
Yeah.
But my concern being in the construction field is memory fades over time. I think it'd be good to get that in writing from them, that they're going to pay this sooner than later, rather than wait for the bill to come to an end. Otherwise, it's the longer it drags out, people have a convenient memory.
Thank you, Councilman.
Anyway,
We'll
that's
work on
my
that.
suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I just wanted to follow up on some similar question. Was there an actual contract with CenturyLink by the city to CenturyLink, or was there a contract with a general contractor that hired CenturyLink?
So in the original contract for the general contractor, there was a provision for the utility to relocate out of the way.
Okay, so it was under the general, I think that's what he asked and was answered. So the liquidated damages fall on the general contractor, not on the subcontractor.
Yes.
So the notice was sent to the general contractor, not to the subcontractor, is that correct?
No, the notice was sent to Lumen to put them on notice that we will receive a claim. So the general contractor told us that they were going to claim for the money, and then we will then pass the money or the claim along to Lumen.
I guess that's where Todd needs to step in and take a look at the contract to see how that path is attained, so, thank you.
Any other discussion? See none, roll call?
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
I do want to get to item 1.3B. This is moved from the consent agenda. This is a subdivision short plat approval for Broadstone Homes. And so it includes a waiver request for setbacks and a landscape buffer. So Parker, can you speak to us about this very quickly? I need to understand why it's on new business and what we need to know and what a motion would look like.
Yep.
Is this really fast?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor and council, this is not a subdivision request at this time. It's simply a waiver request. The final plat will come before you on the consent agenda next time per code. The plat was approved by planning and zoning already. It then goes to city council for a waiver approval, and then it will go back to planning and zoning for the final plat and come before you as the final plat on the consent agenda. So that's the process laid out in code. The waiver requirement There were originally two waiver requirements, one for the height, which was setback, I'm sorry, which was deemed to not be applicable because their structure is below a certain height, so that's not necessary to be approved tonight. What is necessary is the landscape approval. So in this project, this is Broadstone Apartments. When it was originally approved as one development, the landscaping requirements at the time were 15 feet. Now that they're going back and subdividing it, it's 25 feet. So this project is currently being constructed. There's essentially no way to put in that landscape 25 foot now that it's already in place. So they're asking for a waiver requirement to that. Waiver of that requirement. That's the gist of it. The staff report had conditions of approval that they follow the conditions of the plat. And there's a motion for you, and I'll stand for questions.
I think one thing on this that's frustrating is that when somebody comes in for approval, they come in underneath one set of guidelines, and then which then allows them to move forward, and then they want to change it midstream, and then they need a waiver for the landscaping. And so it's hard to understand the why sometimes. Why did that all happen?
Mayor and council, one of the things that changed, so when this first was approved, we had a different landscape requirement at the time. This was back in August of 2021, and the landscape requirement at the time was 15 feet. We've since increased it to 25 feet all in collectors, so that's one of the changes.
Okay, so if it had been finally approved back then, the waiver and what they're asking for would have been approved and fine back then.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's helpful to know. Thank you. Okay, council, what would you like to do on this one? It is a new business item, and it's just a matter of whether we go ahead and approve or not approve the landscape.
I mean, does this need to be read, or can we just approve what the potential motion for approval is?
That's fine.
Okay.
As stated.
So, as stated. So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the waiver of landscape buffer requirements as stated in the staff report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Chingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
I'm going to leave items 610, 611 until after a public hearing, but I do want to let Amber go home. And Amber's action item, hopefully this is fast, is to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement for professional services. This is the design, installation, and warranty with McCall Studios to design and fabricate the original piece of art at 13th Avenue South, the amount of $90,000. $40,000 of that is funded from the city. $50,000 of that is funded from NDC.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
did we get the
Yes.
contract figured out?
It's in there.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Randy.
Mayor, even though I made the motion, just a question. So the individual or individuals who are creating this for us, okay, I guess my only question is well, some front money, 15% or whatever, has been already given to them. Is that our understanding?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And so is there going to be more front money? From what I read, is there any more front money, or is all the other remaining balance going to be paid after the fact, after it's in place?
Correct. The remaining balance will be paid off.
Okay, because my only concern is paying a lot of money up front paying costs, I totally understand for whoever, but I don't like the idea of just paying a lot of money when when the performance has not been completed. So
Right. This was more of a retainer.
Just 15%. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
We're now ready for public hearing, 7-1 on the agenda. This is an annexation and zoning request to RS 8.5 zoning district and potential development agreement at 2909 East Victory Road. This is a 1.37 acre parcel for Olga Sumstov. And is our applicant here? Good evening. Are you Olga? Olga, go ahead and share your name again and your address and tell us a little bit about what you're wanting to accomplish.
Yes, my name is Olga Sumtsov, and I live at the 2909 East Victory Road. And we were asking for the irrigation because we never get the water from the canal we have through our property, because I think we are the last, and somehow the water never get to our property. That's why we were asking for the irrigation.
Thank you. So they're actually annexing in to connect to the existing residential property to pressurized irrigation service. Olga, thank you so much. The next step is we'll have staff share with us, then we have public hearing. We'll ask you to come back if you have anything further to say or if we have questions, and then we'll vote.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we'll have you back in a few minutes. Thank you. Rodney, thank you.
Mayor and council, for the record, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. This is very simple. You've seen these before. This is just for irrigation. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this. You can see the location there. It's close to Endeavor Elementary across the street. And a little closer view, maybe, of the zoning. There, and there's the utilities there. A little closer view of the property. Here, these are all in your staff report. These are the findings that staff recommended. I'm happy to go through them, but I'm going to skip over them because you've got them in your staff report, but those are them. Correspondence, the general standard comments from engineering, and their general standard conditions of approval, and then building as well. So I put those in recommended conditions of approval, and here is your motion for consideration.
Thank you, Rodney.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Rodney? So this is a public hearing, and we do not have anyone signed up to testify in support of or in opposition to. Is there anyone here this evening that had intended to testify in this specific public hearing? Seeing no one, Olga, do you have any further comments other than your request? No? Council, do you have any questions? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what is the will of the council?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to authorize the annexation and zoning to RS 8.5 as presented to us in our packet, with all conditions of approval as noted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez. Brunner.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Everfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
So you're done. You get to go home, and it's done.
You get irrigation water.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Hopefully.
Item 7.2 is an action item. This is a development agreement modification to specify land uses permitted in the Industrial Professionals Zoning District at the date of this application, accepting those prohibited in the existing development agreement for the Fuller 84 Business Park located at 5350 and 5300 East Franklin Road. This is Givens Pursley that is representing RE2 Industrial 5 LLC and RE Industrial 7 LLC. Is our applicant here this evening? Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, Madam Mayor, council members. Jeff Bauer, 601 West Bannock. I wish you would have put ugly sweater on the agenda so I would have known the attire for tonight, but next time.
This is ugly?
Actually, we look better than you.
I should have watched my words closer. Sorry. We are here tonight on a single application. It's for a development agreement modification for the Fuller 84 Business Park. It's going to be a short presentation. I just have one slide. I will skip to it. So unlike most development agreement modifications that we come to you with, this one actually isn't asking for any changes. We're asking for this modification to make sure what you approved last year is built out as planned. And just for some quick background, the Fuller 84 project is an industrial project on the northwest corner of Star and Franklin, just north of the Amazon facility. It was approved for a rezone last year in 2021 to go from GB1 to the IP zone. And after approval, we promptly started construction on this project. We're most of the way through phase one. We expect occupancy in the first quarter of next year. As we're building it out, I get a call from Rodney and says, hey, we're looking at some zoning amendments to our code, including the allowed uses in the IP zone. So we brainstormed about what would be the best way to protect this entitlement so that those changes don't affect our future users. And they said, let's do a DA modification and lock in the uses that were in place in 2021 for the IP land zone. So that's what this application before you is tonight. It simply says the allowed uses on this property are those uses that were in place for the IP zone in 2021, with a couple exceptions. When this was approved, P&Z and the council ordered that on this property, although they were allowed in the IP zones, you couldn't do any PUDs, you couldn't do any manufacture or mobile homes, truck or bus parking, or petroleum storage. So those uses are still prohibited on the property with this modification. Staff recommends approval. We agree with all their conditions, and the Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Council, do you have any questions? Well, you know the drill, so we may have you back.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Rodney?
Mayor and council, this hopefully is another quick one, pretty standard. And Jeff does a really good job of summarizing everything, so I'll go through here pretty quickly. The only thing I'd add is that we have some dimensional standards as well that we're locking in place, not just the land uses, but some dimensional standards that were currently in place and at the time of approval that we're proposing to lock in place. So I'll just go through those real quickly. Again, this is the site. You've seen these before. You know where this is at. And I think we've gone through that already. The Planning and Zoning recommended approval. These are the land uses that are all approved. Those are also in your packet. I've crossed out the ones that you directed not to be approved for this location. One more slide here. And then these are the dimensional standards. No changes here in our code, but we're just kind of locking them in place in case there's any change to our code in the future. And as he said, it's already being built, so there's really not any risk to the city here because it's already being built. The only risk would be if you had concerns about land uses that are approved in the IP zone that you don't want to see. And we've already gone through that in pretty good detail as part of the rezone process. So with that, these are the recommended conditions, and this is a potential motions for your consideration. Again, just development agreements do not have findings of fact like some of the other projects you look at. These are just on an agreement basis, and so you can have any reason for denying or approving this.
Thank you, Rodney. Are there any questions for Rodney? I do, but I think we'll wait until after public hearing. So this is a public hearing, and it's my understanding there is no one signed up to testify in favor of or in opposition to. Is there anyone here this evening that had intended to testify? Seeing no one. I have a quick question. I just want to double check. So in our packet on page, well, it's about 280 under the IP uses, it says a zoo is a permitted use. It also says that a trucking yard is a permitted use. Most everything else, and so if just, well, petroleum storage and truck, taxi cab, it's not crossed out, Rodney. The IP land uses that you're showing there, they're crossed out in our screen, but they're not crossed out in the IP land use document in our packet.
That's correct, Mayor. The reason that is the case is because I was showing you the list of uses, and then in a note underneath that, in the staff report, I just outlined those 4 different uses that are
I
not
saw,
allowed.
and I did see them. Okay, so I just want to make sure it's really clear, even though they're not crossed out in there, they are stated, and I did see that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I guess a question I would have is, and right now what you're wanting to confirm, Jeff, is that you can do anything on this list. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, that's correct, subject to the 4 exceptions. And that is in the proposed development agreement. We carved those out specifically. Even though
Specifically.
they're not in the staff report.
Okay.
Crossed out.
You're not planning on doing a zoo, are you?
If the council wants to take zoo off the list, my clients will not mind.
Well, I doubt you're going to do one, so it's probably not the best location.
Yeah.
And then the trucking yard or terminal is the only other one that I wonder about the appropriateness. But I mean, but you already currently have approval to do anything that's on this list with the exception of those 4. Okay.
Madam Mayor, that's correct. And again, we're building out the 6 buildings. They're all spec industrial. There is no truck terminal planned. We do intend to do logistics type uses with some trucking, but no truck terminal.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions?
I just have
Yes.
one. I'm just curious, Mayor. Jeff, do you have all those areas already designated for businesses? I mean, have you already recruited businesses?
Mayor Kling, Councilmember Rodriguez. So phase 1 are the buildings on the west side, those 3 buildings. Those are basically fully prescribed at this point.
Oh, really?
So we have users online. I'm not yet able to say who they are, but they are ready to be occupied as soon as we get the occupancy
Good job.
permits, essentially.
Good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Great.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Jeff before we close public hearing? Okay, no other questions? Okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Appreciate it. Okay, I'd stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what is the will of the council?
Well, I guess I'll make the motion. I move to approve the development agreement modification. Do you want me to read the whole thing or just say?
The one on the screen, is that what you're looking at up here?
Yes.
Okay. You could say as stated
As stated,
in our,
with the 4 exceptions that we've already displayed.
okay?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded twice. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Ingula,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Power,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a good evening.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. We're ready to move to 7.3. 7.3 is an action item. This is the 2021 Program Year Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report for submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on or before December 30th. So I think it's getting close. Matt, thank you for being here this evening.
Yeah, Mayor Kling, Council. I guess I didn't realize I was supposed to do this. Matt Jameson, for the record, Economic Community Development. I don't think I've done that in the past. But yep, another year has gone by. This is the annual report that we send to HUD. It's basically just a summary of the activities that either received and expended funding during the program year, how much was spent, what accomplishments we had during that program year. And then they just basically review it and they'll submit back if they have anything else. But I have a few more things to look at, but I'm basically ready to submit it if the council is okay with that. Again, it does have kind of a hard deadline, but next year my goal is to get it done before Thanksgiving so I can enjoy the holidays a little more and not spend so much time working during them. But again, most of this information's in your packet. I didn't know if you had any questions outright, but it's a lot of information. It's hard to present it in a nice way. I apologize. It's pretty dry, but it's all great, important stuff. And as just stated, this is an annual report we fill out. It's really just a summary of what we did in the prior program year. It can include the funding that was allocated during that program year, but also prior year funding that we expended during that year. So In general, the funding that was available to be spent during the prior program year was a little over 1.4 million. And then I included the full amount of the CARES Act. We have expended some of those funds, but the total that where it was in the plan for 2021 was 2.2 million and some change. So we had quite a bit of money out there. Most of it, if not all of it, it's allocated to projects, and quite a few of them were completed during the year. This little chart here is a summary of what was actually in the 2021 action plan. As you can see, most of those activities were completed, with the exception of a few that are either on hold or postponed due to some scheduling. We had the one, which was, I'd just like to point out, which was the first and 13 ped ramps, which we've actually, we've shifted that funding. You've approved to move that funding to be part of this current program year upcoming to help with some design work, because we found we were overlapping with some street work that was going to happen in 2024. So we're going to try to line up with them and do it all at the same time to ease on the business owners downtown. So that one is postponed. And then we have a few other that should complete here first thing in the spring, I think, once the weather breaks, the basketball courts and some of the other infrastructure. The Brush Up Nampa, we do have open. We're working with a contractor to do 2 lead homes this year. Just with weather and stuff, we're just having, he's going to probably also take care of those first thing in spring, and then we'll close that activity out. But that's the only thing pending on that one. And as you know, we did allocate some funding to the core apartments. Those will probably move sometime forward in the next program year. And then these are the 3 that we had outstanding that carried over from last year. All 3 are now completed with just a little bit of money left over that we can take that funding and move it into other activities in the next program year available. As far as the CARES Act, that's just a summary of the money. A total amount we received from the Department of Housing and Urban Development was $830,000. We've currently expended $407, with the remaining $423 in unexpended. Catch of Canyon County has that $124,000. They were trying to expend other funds that expired just recently, and so we've had a meeting, and they're shifting their focus now back to our funds. So we anticipate she'll move through that funding pretty quickly. And then we are working with some other partners to try to figure out somebody that can try to move some of that rent utility assistance money a little more efficiently. We've struggled with that one, I think partially because there's so much money. There was so much money at the time in the market for that. With IHFA, they had several $1 million available, and I think they were getting all of the inquiries were being directed there. Just because they had an enormous marketing campaign. And so we've really struggled on the prevention side. And so we're in talks with some new partners to see if we can get that money expended by July. So we're hoping that that will work out well. But I think we're going to get a big chunk of that funding expended here this spring.
So what about Jesse Tree? Because I noticed that Jesse Tree has $34,000, but they also have the rent assistance. And so out of that, I think it was $74,000 that was still sitting there. Is Jesse Tree, did we just recently give that to
them?
them?
They have 34. We gave them a little bit of funding to try just to give it a test and see how well they do. So they reached out recently. They were inquiring about our online software to make some to getting familiar with how to prepare and ask for a draw. They haven't asked for any reimbursements yet, but it sounds like they're preparing to get a draw ready because we were giving them a tutorial on how to use our online software program. So we're gonna, I think after the CAPER submitted, we're gonna circle up with them and see where they're at, how they're doing with money, if they're finding any obstacles. Because again, that's been for some reason, been a hard one for people to find, which I'm still baffled by that. I think there's plenty of need in the community for rent utility assistance. And so we're gonna find out what the sticking point is. And then if they're having some issues, we'll help with some technical assistance, try to help them work through it. But I think they're a capable organization. And so I actually anticipate that they're gonna have some draws ready for us.
Yeah, they're a very capable organization. I do have a quick question. Can any of the $74,000 that's sitting there that advocates, I think, had that hasn't been utilized, could any of that go to the City of Nampa Utility Assistance Program?
It can go towards Nampa Utilities, absolutely. We can certainly refer anyone that comes in looking for help with Nampa rent or Nampa Utilities. In fact, we have been referring them over to advocates, but we would have to, in essence, just run an in-house program, which we
Well,
could
we do
try to
have
work that out.
utility assistants currently within the city, and I
The
think
shares
that's.
and cares, is that
Uh-huh.
the, yep.
So I'm just thinking is, I don't know what the balance is and what our need is there, but my thought is if we have dollars that aren't being used, if we could apply it to Nampa Shares and Cares and make sure that we're using those funds.
We
that we're
would want to
supporting
make
people.
sure that if we did that, we would want to make sure it's open to any utility and rent. It's a similar structure. And then, and per HUD's guidance, we actually can't, we have to pay only the cost portion of the Nampa utility. It's not a lot of money, but I think the last one I calculated was like $16 or something. It was a really small amount for the bill, but we can't pay the profit portion. We can only pay the cost. So if we're reimbursing a city utility, city-owned utility, we can't pay any profits. We can only pay the cost structure. So it would maybe get our accounts current, but I don't know if it would add anything to the bottom line. But we can certainly look at it. I just think we'd want to make sure it was open, not only to our city utility, but also any other power and gas that they might need help with. But-
Mayor,
Thank you.
if I may, Matt, just quick question. As an example, Jesse Tree, 74,000 or whatever, so.
34 for Jesse.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah, 34.
34,000. So how much of that, and remind me of the percentage, how much can they use as far as administration rather than just going directly to the need?
In their case, I think they have money that was going directly to the need, and they were looking to expand, I think, staff time. There's really no limit. We try to make sure that we have
So there's no accountability really on that?
accountability. No, they'll have to provide me, they'll have to show me every single person they help by assigning that person a case ID and showing me their
And
casework.
and expenditure, and then, but as
Yeah.
far as for any staff time or whatever, do you also see that?
Yeah, they provide me time cards. I look at the time cards. We compare those to the people that they've assisted. We look at how much money they give, over what time frame they gave it, and then they provide us. In some cases, we'll do a bit more detailed monitoring. We'll go out and actually look at the case notes, see what kind of case management they're actually providing, see if it's justified for the amount of time spent on the
So
activity.
you and your team make that decision?
Yeah, Hannah and I, we review.
Whether it's reasonable or not reasonable?
We review every draw request.
That's
and
what
then-
I mean by accountability.
Yeah, she'll review it, and then she'll give it to me to review it again, and then we'll get together and discuss it and make sure we both agree.
Thanks.
Yeah, we scrutinize them pretty hard. But we try to, just so you know, we try to have a mix of somewhere between 25 and 30% on the administrative side if we can, and
That's
the
what I
rest
was
direct benefit.
curious. I know we've seen that before. I just.
Yeah, and so I think I skipped forward a slide. This particular one is just talking about the caps that we do have. There is no cap on public service for the CARES Act funding, but right now we still are held accountable for our 20% cap on admin and 15% on public service. This year, because advocates had so much CARES Act funding remaining, we asked them not to spend any of the money we allocated here. So we will roll that into another activity to be carried out in this current program year. We'll probably come to you and find another home for that. So that's why we're at 10%. Normally we'd be right at 14-ish on there, but we've asked them to just spend the CARES Act money while it was available. And then we were about 15% on admin costs. We had some staffing changes and we weren't billing as much to staff, so we're from 3 to 2 now. So we had some cost savings there. And so we came in under the 20% cap on admin time. But both were within the compliance requirement for HUD. Just a quick one-year recap of accomplishments. I've tried to summarize them best I can. So of the activities that were actually completed, we assisted on an area basis about 9,000 people. And then similarly on the prior year's activities, those ones that completed during this year was about $4,100 people assisted on an area basis. And so we look at those on census tract sort of that would benefit from that particular work that's being done. So those are some of the numbers submitted there. We did help 10 households this year between the home repair loan program and Brush Up Nampa program. And those were all for mostly sewer lines, some roof repairs and furnace and other critical home repairs. And then we still had one more historic facade we got done during the 2021 program year. And that activity is now officially closed. And I think that was sort of the highlights from those. We do those on an area basis. We do help quite a few folks. And our public service came in pretty close to what their estimates were. And then same on the CARES Act. We've not seen a lot of progress on the rent and utility side, but we're going to work on that. We think we found a couple partners that can get that done for us, and I think Catch is going to hit their numbers. They've spent $1,000 so far, and they've already helped, I think, 22 people. So they're already hitting their number almost, and they've almost spent, a 24th of the funding. So I think they'll get there. We'll help plenty of people. This is just a quick summary of the full 5 years. So this particular CAPER that I'm submitting is the final year of our previous 5-year comp plan. On an area basis and or just pure individuals assisted over the last 5 years, it comes out to be about 63,000. Excuse me, I just went. And I went too far. About 63,000 people on an area basis. So the infrastructure work we're doing is benefiting a lot of people. We were averaging about 13 homes a year, give or take, on the homeowner rehab projects we have. So we had 65, so that was about 13 a year. And then so far, we've created in that 5-year con planning process, we completed 52 affordable housing units, and we have 154 more on sort of on the books that are one will probably finish here in the next 2 months and be at full occupancy, and the other one will start to be carried out over the next year. So that we've got quite a few more units coming online. We just can't report those quite yet. And that's basically it. Sorry, I've tried to make that funner, but it's important stuff, but it's sometimes hard to just read through that many charts and that much information. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything.
Matt, thank you, first of all, for managing this. The federal reporting side is intense. There's a lot to do, and thank you so much for doing it, because there are a lot of people in our community that benefit from the CDBG, if I can talk dollars, but there's a lot of accountability that goes with it. Thank you for your work on that, because it's tedious, but thank you so much.
I enjoy
So,
it.
Council, do we have any questions for Matt?
Mayor, I do
Yes.
really quick.
Yeah.
So Matt, do all these funds, or how much extra funds do we still have? Have we used them all?
Everything is, so the money we anticipated wouldn't get spent this year or soon after this program year ended. We allocated out as much as we could in this current year's allocation, so back in August. So everything that was available to me is all allocated. Once I close out, there'll be some remainders that happen just because things come in a little under budget. Sometimes we just don't spend all the money, so it's 5,000 here, 5,000 there. So as I close out a few more activities, we'll have some more become available, and we'll allocate that as part of the next round that comes out, unless something happens where there's we've initially estimated $80,000 for a sidewalk, and we discover they have to move a utility or something, and then so it bumps it up 20,000. We may come back and allocate it to something like that between the cycles, but mostly we allocate, and HUD looks at all of our funding available to commit. They'll look at that number and they'll want to know why it's not being committed in each action plan. So we look at everything that's out and available, committed each August, and then what becomes available during the program year, we'll either allocate next year or we'll give it to something that needs it in the current year.
And for clarity, you'll come back before council for that allocation.
Yes.
So you would have an opportunity to weigh in when it does come available.
Yep.
The council will hear about it, and that way you'd be able to weigh in on that.
Yeah, we just try to do it in as few of touches as possible. So if we'll allocate everything that's available as part of next action plan process, we'll try to get that underway in April. Really, I'm going to try to have a decision made by the end of June. We're trying to push everything up by about a month for next year, just to make our lives a little more efficient, I guess. But
My
yeah,
thought
you'll
with
have
that-
control of that funding.
Perfect. Yeah, my thought with that was just if we could allocate extra funds that we have to sidewalks in those areas, just because we're always getting hit with these needing to have repairs, and we have a lot of disabled people in the community, as we all know. We took the wheelchair challenge, that rely on those areas to be, up to par for them to be able to transport themselves. And so I was just thinking that would be ideal if we have extra funds for that, and it's a way to alleviate some of the tax burden too on citizens.
And I think we're this year, I think we're helping with some design work that I think the following year, we're probably going to do the actual construction of some corners downtown. That'll probably tax all my available money for infrastructure. And then we'll have some money set aside each year, the same as every year, for facility improvements. I think we're planning to look at some ADA improvements at the buildings around the city, again, to help with access. So I think that's sort of been an upfront plan with other departments, to areas to focus the money. So I think that it certainly takes the lion's share of the funding. We're capped at 15% on public service, and then the rest just goes towards infrastructure and other facility improvements, things that help people on a much broader area basis. But
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
you bet.
Are there any other questions from council? So this is a public hearing, and thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. There is no one signed up. And so is there anyone here that would like to testify on behalf of our 2021 Program Year Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council, do you have any further questions for Matt? Seeing none, what is the will of the council?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the 2021 Program Year Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Everfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks,
This
everybody.
Thank you, Matt. This is a little unusual, but I'd like to ask, Caleb, you're just waiting for your one item, right? Could we switch over real quickly to item 610, and I apologize. So this is an action item. It's to authorize the mayor to sign the water reimbursement agreement with Eagle Christian Church. And it is approved by legal. This is just where they actually afford the opportunity, where they've gone to the expense of laying the line. If other utilities, people come in after the fact, there is a reimbursement policy in place with no interest applied, that they could get some reimbursement for their individual investment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Everfield.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Caleb, I'm sorry you waited so long. I just saw you sitting there and thought we won't make you do that. Doug, since Doug's here, we're leaving Doug's till the end, since you're sitting here anyway. Sorry, Doug. Okay, so we're ready for 7.4. This is an action item, and this is the Nampa Districting Committee's recommended Nampa Districting Plan for the establishment of city council districts. Rick, thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Council, again. We're going to, since the city was legally required to come up with this, I'm kind of serving as part A of the applicant process, and Adrian, who's the chair of the committee, will be brought up here briefly and give a summary of the committee's report and the recommended map. Just a very brief contextual kind of reminder of how did we get here. Idaho legislature passed statute that required cities 100,000 or larger to elect council members by districts, which requires the establishment of districts after the census in 2020 showed that Nampa was in fact 100,000 people, 100,200. The city was then on the clock per the statute to identify districts ahead of the next elections, which are November 7th, 2023. So 3 cities, Boise, Meridian, and us, were the 3 cities that had to comply with this. Boise was already on the clock when the statute was passed because Boise hit 100,000 on the 2010 census, so they were on the clock immediately. Us and Meridian were anticipating to be at 100,000 plus pending the 2020 census because we were only at 80-something thousand in the 2010 census. It was closer than we thought, 100,200. If we were 201 people lower, we wouldn't be here tonight dealing with districts. However, here we are, and the process in which we got here, you passed an ordinance which updated kind of the council ordinance and formed a districting committee. We had a 9-person committee, and 6 of those 9 people had to live from all parts of the city. Thank you for passing that ordinance. It was a little bit of a challenge to ensure that we had representation from across the city. I won't name cities, but some other cities debated whether or not there should be members from all parts of the city and did not follow suit in that regard. We also did not use a consultant. So that a big round of applause to our staff, Rodney Ashby as planner, Daniel Badger, Craig Tarter. I think Craig Tarter's online to answer questions from GIS. Our team did a lot of the legwork. Our staff is busy, but they took this project on and it saved us a lot of money. I won't name names, but other cities hired consultants and it cost a lot of money for them to go about the process. So we did our best as a team to get here tonight, and there was one map. So I will let Adrian here identify that process which led to the map. But some of the framework that guided this process for the state statute is the 6 districts. If you take 100,200 people and divide it by 6, the ideal district would be 16,700 people. You had to use puzzle pieces that we did not come up with. You have to use precincts as they were already identified by the county. And our GIS team had to go into the precincts because some of the precincts cover areas of city limits and outside city limits. We're only to count within those precincts the people who live within city limits for the pop count, the population count, in order to know how much is that puzzle piece worth per population. The puzzle pieces, the precincts had to be contiguous to one another, to be adjoining to one another, and to try to get to that 16,700. Here's the kicker. The total variance from the largest to the smallest could not be larger than a 10% total variance. So you take a target of 16,700 and you essentially could not be more than 5% above that or below that when you're adding the precincts together. There were a lot of maps. There's a lot of public input, and what's before you tonight is the map with the legal description that would meet our target, our deadline. Our hope was to get a district completed so that the public would know as we go into a new year, and as people consider running for city council, voting next fall, that we would educate. And we've already got confirmation from our GIS team that once the maps are identified, we'll do our best to let the public know, like punch in their address and find out what district they're in. We'll do our best to help inform and educate. So that's the process that got here, and I will defer now to Adrian. Adrian was elected the chair of the districting committee in the first meeting, and from then on, this committee, which there was 9 members of the committee, as I mentioned, and they all deserve much appreciation and thanks. I'm not going to name all the names, but the 9 members.
Actually, I think you should.
Yes, I will.
Stephanie's
Okay,
out
I will
here.
name them.
Thank you, Stephanie. Please name them
I will
because
respect
they
time.
worked
Okay, so
hard.
Matthew
Yes.
Johnson, Adrian Castaneda, Anthony Berlin, Stephanie Binns, who's with us this evening. She's a trooper. She's the one who came up with the map, by the way, that met the mathematical equation. Kathleen Tuck, Ray Booz, Troy Minnick, Jane Zornick, and Nathan Cleaver. So they were the 9 members who gave of their time and efforts to guide this process and to provide this map. It also included 2 open houses to the public for public input, and we also had it open for public input via email and electronic input, and all of that should be in your packet. The minutes from all the meetings are in your packet. All the public input is in your packet, and we try to make sure that you see everything that this committee saw. So I'm going to turn over to Adrian, and he can quickly summarize their meetings in the map, and then turn it over to the public hearing. So, yeah.
So, and I think that we're going to save questions from the council till after the public hearing. But after Adrian, then Todd, you'll get to share with us. So we'll just hold our questions. Adrian, thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for your leadership. It's appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity of being able to help. So as Mr. Hogelbaum had already explained, was one of 9 members that are the committee, and we ended up creating this map essentially over 4 meetings going through it. So in the first session, we created figuring out how we kind of wanted to approach this, and then selected the chair and the vice chair. And then from there to our next meeting, the first homework assignment was essentially given. Try to figure out how can we get the map following into the particular conditions, which, as we're kind of already explained, that needing to hit within 10% of the variance of 16,700. But not only did we discover as far as in the 16,700, we had to hit within 10% of whatever the first district, the largest district that was going to get compiled out of this, the lowest district had to be within 10% of that one. And so that's what ended up showing up our maps as we were going through the process into there. So we couldn't break up any of the districts. Each of the precincts as we were going through had to touch contiguously, which when I was first looking at that, I thought touching had to mean kind of like on a flat side. No, it just meant they had to touch. Literally by street or by corner section. And so by our second meeting, each of the members had brought in roughly about 30 to 31. We think it was 31. One of them we were kind of changing it as we were kind of bringing it in. Within 10 minutes, we realized 30 of them did not fit. So because of the 10% variance that was required within there. So we continued working out through that to seeing if we could find any of the other ones by maybe just maneuvering just a little bit, and realize that any small change was immediately changing the rest of the values, so that you were constantly getting pushed out of the 10%. By our following meeting, we were able to set up, thankfully, to the wonderful staff who essentially was able to set up for the open houses for both virtually and in physical. I had the opportunity of being able to attend the second physical one into there. And the staff had done such a great job that they actually brought large puzzle pieces of the districts and placed it on the individuals to see if you can make it fit. A lot of people were really trying. I actually had placed my own kids to try to see if they could figure out a solution. I figured that they're younger, much smarter than I was. I thought they could get it. Now, they could get close, but they couldn't get into an area that would come up close into those numbers. So after the 2 open houses and also receiving a little bit of feedback, we had received a couple more maps that actually got pretty close to being able to hit each of the elements into there, but only one map continuously kept showing up as actually being able to check off each requirement into there. And as was just explained, that's actually was created by Stephanie Benz, so she had put quite a bit of work into figuring that out. So after that, we were able to kind of come together into our last meeting, figure out that we can now set up a resolution and then bring it forward over to the council. I'm happy to answer any questions.
We'll have you come back after the public hearing to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Sure thing.
Todd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, and also I want to express my appreciation to the committee. The committee also involved myself and folks from the clerk's office initially, and those with expertise in this particular area as far as population goes. Just to lay out the legal requirements, I think Rick and Adrian covered it to a large degree. The legislature adopted 50-0707A that requires the districts to be established, that they be contiguous, that they be as close as possible to the same number of people, and that determination is that formula that they laid out, the Supreme Court formula, that it's a prima facie assumption of compliance if you're within that 10% deviation. And then the council, I think in its wisdom, passed the ordinance, which basically takes the council out of the equation to remove any self-interest or perception of self-interest. And it's essentially a ministerial act on your part. You review their recommendation, their map, their plan for compliance with the standards. And they are specifically directed in your ordinance not to consider current residency of elected officials or candidates. So they had to take that out. That was not something they could consider. Then they were required to consult the resources and experts and consider only the census. So they couldn't look at, well, it may grow more here or it may grow more there. They have to take the number from census and use that. And then the resolution that they present has to include a map showing the district's location, the description of the boundaries by streets, and then declare and number those particular districts. So I think they've done that and they're in compliance. We may have to come back with a follow-up. We're still looking at that as far as clarification of the staggering of the districts. You already have the districts staggered. That's not part of the directive to the committee. And Rick and I are looking at that and seeing if that's necessary or not. But your task today is to look at that resolution and plan and make a determination if it's in compliance. You don't have the ability to change the map or say, I like a different map or I want you to do something different. You determine compliance. If you determine there's not compliance, then the only action is to remand back to the committee and have them do their work again.
It is either to approve or remand back to committee. That's the decision tonight.
Correct. So, like I said, you can't have a directive to say, I want you to do this or do that or change this or change that.
Okay, thank you. And then my understanding is that we're to hold questions until after the public hearing. Is that correct? I see that written on my notes.
I would do that, Madam Mayor. And you can always, as part of the public hearing, if you have any questions, or bring Rick or Adrian or ask questions of myself. Let the public make their comments, then you can deliberate and ask questions.
Okay. Thank you so much. So this is a public hearing. You know what's amazing? We don't have anyone signed up to testify. I find that crazy. Stephanie, I am glad you're here. May I call on you to come up and be our sole testifier? Thank you. We need somebody to testify. And then if there's anyone else in the audience that would like to testify, please know that you are welcome to. I'll have you raise your hand in a minute. Stephanie, thank you for participating on the committee.
It was my honor and pleasure. We had interesting discussions, and it was a lot of hard work. It was particularly challenging because Nampa has very diverse pockets of people who live in little concentrated areas. And one of the things that came up in the public council was, well, because of the size of each of these districts, I am not like fill in the blank, right? I live in this area and I'm looped in with this other area that's not like me. But I think one of the strengths is that, well, we're all neighbors. We're all from Nampa. We got to figure out a way to work together to make the best decisions for all of us. And like it has been said a million times already tonight, this was the only map on which the numbers worked to meet constitutional muster.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you testifying. Thank you for coming up with the only map that worked. That was wonderful. So is there anyone here this evening that would like to testify that didn't get signed up? Okay, I do not see anyone.
Not even Sharon or Dave? No.
Yes.
Oh,
You would have to stand up. And then, and the gentleman right here in the hat, I don't know, I will ask you, are you here for something in particular or just listening? Just here. Thank you. Sharon, hi.
Okay,
So
I'm
you're-
Sharon Harris. And I live at 1612 South Miller Way, Nampa. And I just want to say, I think this is remarkable. I don't like the district concept, but since we have to do it, I just appreciate the team that put this together. And we all had an opportunity to give input. And I know we gave a little bit of our input. So I say yes, this is very remarkable. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharon. So it doesn't appear that we have anyone else to testify during public hearing. So at this time, this would be an opportunity for city council, and I'm going to leave public hearing open, if that's okay, during council discussion, questions. That way, if you have questions for Adrian, you can ask them. And then let me know when can tell when discussion's done, and we'll close public hearing and vote.
Mayor, I just have one question. Number one, thank you, and the other 7 who are not here for your good work. My only question is, and it may have been in the packet, but I searched and maybe did not find, how did you declare the numbers? Like which area was going to be 1, which area was going to be 2? I don't know, whoever wants to, it looks like it's, just by my clock, it looks like it's like you started at the top and maybe it was a clockwise type, but maybe there was more science to that than just a clockwise.
No, that's exactly it. We just started up with giving a number. I think even in some of our initial ones, number 1, District 1 was just ending up all over the place. When we were initially doing the maps, number 1 tended to be the first precinct. We were sometimes working our way out and then working our way out to it. So as far as on the drafts of the majority of the maps, there was no rhyme or reason. It wasn't until when we finally identified the one that could do it, then we just started north and just working our way clockwise.
And then you did work around clockwise. So I somewhat guessed right. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
Mayor, I just have comments. I want to commend you guys for all of your efforts. I listened to all of your guys' meetings and I looked at all of the notes and things, and that was a huge job. And you guys went back and forth to really try to come up with the best and only scenario. So great job. My ridiculously competitive nature made me spend way too much time because I wanted to solve it too. So I was like, no one else gets to solve it, I want to solve it too.
I'm sure.
I spent over 12 hours also trying this out. I actually did come up with one other, I couldn't stop till I did. So there is one other one. I'm not lobbying for it. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it is legal. So for what that's worth, I know that this is a good map. I love the map. I think it's great. The only thing that the reason why I was dissecting it so much was because when I look at it, I don't love how green, whatever district that is it 4?
4.
How it's just feels like it's like a couple neighborhoods and there's really nowhere for it to grow. So these outer districts are going to continue to take the brunt of the growth. And then eventually, it will diverse itself again the more that we grow. But that was the reason why I was really trying to break this up and figure out a way. I did break it up a little bit, but I'm not saying that it's better. That was my goal.
Yeah, no, that was, especially 2 of those precincts were the ones that we kept shuffling around a lot, mainly because their numbers were actually some of the higher numbers as far as into there.
Yep.
And we were using the term landlocked in that sense because there wasn't a lot of growth into that area unless you really got into more heavier dense areas. And so that tended to be one of the areas where we would run into it and then we would be switching it back and forth from one to the other. And I totally know what you feel as far as for that. I spent a lot of hours I think I brought in 4, and I think within the first 5 minutes, they all went out the window. So it didn't take very long, but it was very interesting kind of going through the process.
Yeah.
Mayor, I lied. I do have one more question. So Todd, so the next time this can be redistrict would be 2030? Is it every 10-year census?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Brunner, yes.
Okay, so even if we have wide growth and 5 or whoever or 1 goes wild, that makes no difference for another 10 years or 9 years, whatever.
Correct. But you will get a chance to redraw the boundaries after 10 years of growth.
Those of us still alive.
Yeah.
Councilman Bauer.
Yeah, I also kind of messed around with the map for fun, and I thought I came up with a couple other options that didn't have the landlocked either. So that's just a concern that when the next date is, you're going to have a pretty lopsided number, in my opinion, if there is like another growth factor in Nampa. But yeah, very, very difficult to create this map, so appreciate the time and effort. It's math's kind of like something I enjoy, so like a puzzle. It's be kind of fun to be on that committee if I was on it. So thank you.
Any other comments? Yes.
I know a question wasn't asked, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I think the sentiment that I hear here, I think the team looked at ways to try to start the map where you're grabbing part of inside and going out so that they would be fluid. So as population grows, hopefully they would grow the same, so that in 10 years, when we have to do this again, it isn't a radical redraw. But, the fear is in 10 years, there's going to be growth in some of these precincts. We're going to have to meet the constitutional test to make sure that citizens are equally represented. I don't know if I'll be around here in 10 years, or if Adrian or anyone else, but this will be another difficult task. And I guess, I know it's beyond the scope of the work that you're having to do in identifying a map right now. And I know the legislature goes through this every 10 years. The redistricting causes some people to have to run against each other, and it's disruptive. I just wish there wasn't that sort of disruption for city council. So I think that a lot of those concerns were to try to let the districts grow. The landlocked districts, as you note, that are mostly already fully built out, there's not going to be a lot of increase in those, but the exterior precincts are going to experience growth. So the anticipation is when we come back, you're going to see that those perimeter precincts are probably bigger, and those districts are going to be larger than the ones that are landlocked, and you're going to have to redo this. Add on to the fact that the county also redraws the precincts every 10 years. These puzzle pieces aren't going to look the same. I don't know. By the way, I forgot to mention Clerk Yamamoto and Haley Hicks from the elections office. They did attend our first meeting, and we kept them apprised of the process. Amy Bowman, also big shout out. She came up with the boards and did a lot of the public outreach, and Amy did a great job. But in 10 years, the county, you're going to have to go through this, new puzzle pieces, and go through this. I just wanted you and the public to know, for the record, that this is going to be disruptive every 10 years, and I wish it wasn't so, because I think the citizens, as much as they might gain having proximate representation in a district, they might find themselves in a different district in 10 years and then another 10 years and whatnot. And so that sort of discontinuity, because we're a growing city, if we were already a fully built-out city, then these districts would stay pretty static, right? Not a lot of variance. But the fact that we're growing, one of the fastest growing cities in the country, it's going to be disruptive every 10 years until we're fully built out.
So Mayor,
Thank you.
oh, go ahead, you had your hand raised.
Can you stay up here, Rick? So will the committee stay the same in 10 years, or will it be a whole new committee?
It'll be a whole new committee at that time. So this committee was an ad hoc working group. Once you ratify and accept this, their task is done, and in 10 years, whoever the mayor and council would at that time would have to
It is
adopt.
established by ordinance, though.
Correct.
So the committee structure will remain the same, as established by ordinance, but different people on the committee.
So Mayor, a question maybe for the senator from his standpoint. So is there any chance the different legislature would take these districts away or minimize them less than 6? I mean, or what is Supreme Court and so on, I know, has established the numbers, but can the legislature make a change on this?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Bruner, can the legislature make a change? Yes.
I mean, I realize the chances of that happening
There's
are.
not any talk of it. Part of what the impetus was, there is some case law out there that talks about the need for equivalent representation and location. Not absolutely specific, but that was part of the reason behind the use of districts over a certain population.
Okay. I won't get into the real reason. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like
So
to.
are there any other questions before we close public hearing? Any other questions for Adrian?
Good job,
All right.
guys.
Thank you. Okay, so I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
I was just going to ask if I could make one last comment.
Yes.
Just wanted to
sorry.
say, again, if I didn't say it enough, is that this really couldn't have been done without the city staff. So Without their work, we would have had quite a bit more difficulty just even trying to figure out how to do an open house properly. Would have been interesting as it was. We would have probably just tried to have people hang out at our house and then try to figure out how we go from there.
Yeah.
So, and especially the virtual method, I think that also was very helpful. I know that for several committee members, just being able to have that physical open house with the map that involved a lot of moving pieces, but also the virtual piece into it. It helped us being able to create conversations as we were talking with other members within the community of how this kind of was coming through the process and being able to actually read the whole story of how the map was actually coming out. So I think that was extremely helpful. Couldn't have done that without the staff and without, I forgot our GIS guy, Greg Tarter. So really appreciate it.
Adrian, thank you.
Mayor, just, I mean, if this 9 people, I realize it's on public record now as far as if anyone's listening, but if they are okay with it, I mean, I would like Amy, their names to be recognized for their hard work in whatever social media or newspaper or whatever that they may be recognized. And whoever made the decision on no consultant, you know my love for consultants, thank you. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
A little sarcasm here.
Adrian, thank you so much for mentioning staff. I know one thing I was just thinking about, we did have open houses. Amy worked really diligently to get the word out. And so I am fully confident the word's been out. We had quite a few come to our open house, our town, when we were right here all set up. And so we got some really good feedback. And while there isn't anybody really here tonight other than Stephanie and Adrian, and then our loyal citizens here, but there were a number of people that provided input, and we did answer a lot of questions in advance of tonight, so which is good to know. So thank you, guys. With that, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, council, what is the will of the council?
Mayor, really quickly, I know the process isn't to disrupt this. I mean, we're this close and there's been a lot of work that's gone into it. But with another map sitting here, if council wants to see it, I don't necessarily think that it's better. I actually do prefer theirs better, but it is another legal map. So I don't know if council wants to see it, and if they do, because I mean, it is another option. So I don't know what the process of that would be.
Actually, as Todd shared earlier, we cannot take anything else into consideration at this time. We either approve what we have, or we have to remand it, bring the committee back together, and start the process again with the committee. So that would be, if the council would choose to do that, they could certainly remand it back to take that into consideration.
Mayor, I make the motion that we accept the map that has been recommended by this fine committee.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the map that has been recommended. Is there any further discussion? I see a question. I see a couple of questions. So what is the question?
Okay.
Okay.
As you all know, I've been disagreeing with this process. I think the state legislature stepped over bounds and manipulated what our city council is very concerned with and very capable of handling our own city business. And I'm really not in agreement with what the legislators did to our city, because it's going to throw away some good people that's on this council now. It's a confused state in 10 years from now, and I think that is really going to be an issue in 10 years from now. But I would actually like to see other maps, and I will not stop the process, but it's just my opinion. I think the committee did well over what they, wow, it's just amazing what they did, and I commend them for that. I'm just concerned with what we're up against right now. I think I'm not going to vote for this. So I've been negative ever since the state started this. I'm not going to change.
So, Todd, I guess the question would be, what would be the legal consequences for us as a city not to adhere to state statute? So there's two issues. One, if we go back, remand, and start this process again. The other one is legally, what are we bound to?
Okay. Madam Mayor and council members, Again, your decision today is not you have a different map or would like a different map. It's does this map meet the legal requirements? That's your decision. If it is, your ordinance says it's simply a ministerial act. You approve it. Again, you don't put forward changes. You're keeping, by your ordinance, yourself out of the process. State statute does require it. You, again, can vote as you would like to vote, but if you don't have the changes, then I think it calls into question your elections next year and whether they're valid.
So we, just like we expect our citizens to adhere, whether they like the law or not, we expect our citizens to obey the law. We as a city, even though I would say I would not have chosen this, and I don't agree with it, but I don't have that privilege at this time because the state law is that we adhere to. And so my understanding is that we have accomplished or adhered to all the elements of the state statute in the map that has been presented before us. And so could you repeat that? Tonight we're voting on, just to make sure we all understand.
Madam Mayor and council members, again, by your ordinance, the only vote you are making tonight, or the decision you're making tonight, is whether this plan that was put forward by the committee after their work meets the legal requirements. Again, you don't have an option to say, I like something different, I want you to do something different. If it meets the requirements, then that's your decision. Your ordinance says approve it.
Okay.
Mayor, just a little extension. I think the only thing to be done, and it's not this coming legislature, and I don't know if it's the one after, because our senators and legal has already commented on that. But I think the main thing, I'm not going to speak for anyone else. I think I can speak for this man here and you, Mayor, since you stated, and I was not in favor of this, had another advocacy going, but is that our district, our precinct representatives and senators, hopefully we can maybe get a bill at least out there. What the chances, probably minimal, but in the future, 2-3 years, whatever the case is, and get this off the books, or do our best to get it off the books, or at least changed. I mean, 6 districts to me for the size of the city of Nampa is ridiculous. But thank you again. That has nothing for all your good work. So, okay.
So at this time, we have a motion on the table and a second, is that correct? To approve it as presented. Is there further discussion before I go for roll call?
Mayor, really quickly, just to be sensitive to Councilmember Rodriguez's comment, yes, that is true legally, that's what we are supposed to be doing right now, but what is the actual deadline that this has to be in place? Because we potentially would have wiggle room if council decided they did want to keep doing the process. How much time do we still have? Because this map's been done for a while and we've been sitting for a while on not voting, so there's been time wasted. I'm not saying I'm against this map. I'm just saying to be sensitive to his comment, how much time do we really have to put something
One
in
comment, though, is that during this time frame, if there was another map, it should have come forward before tonight so that we could have considered it and reconvened. Because the goal was to be done before the first of the year so that as people are considering whether they want to run, they have plenty of time to consider it. So, but I'll let legal answer that question.
Mayor, so those are kind of the practical concerns and your goal behind it. Again, Councilmember Jangula, it's not the decision isn't we want to keep looking, it's does this comply? That's what your ordinance says you have to do. The timelines specifically in the ordinance are the map needs to be presented, I believe it's 135 days before the election. And it also says if another map isn't brought forward, the last plan adopted by the committee is the one that stands. Again, your decision is we want you to keep looking, it's does this comply or not?
Todd, could you repeat the last thing you just said, though? Because that actually does, if I understand what you just said, is that we can say that this complies, but it almost sounded like if another map came and we revoted, is that what I'm hearing you say?
So that's what it says. But I think you would have to make a finding that it doesn't comply. That's what your decision is tonight, compliance or not. And I think the ordinance, then it does say if you were to remand it back and a map didn't come forward in a timely fashion, then the last plan adopted by the committee, who does feel like it complies as well, is the one that's in place.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't want to, your decision is compliance or not tonight. That's what you feel. And if you feel it's not in compliance, then it's a remand.
Mayor?
Okay. Yes.
If I could ask a question. So Todd, some of these precincts have, I'm talking the equal amount of people in those precincts. One is 17,260. The other is 16,230. And then we go up to 16,816 as in number 2. So those are the numbers that I'm really concerned with. You're going to be heavy in some and not in some. So does this qualify? I don't think so. By the number of numbers.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Rodriguez, it does. So the perfect world is the 6 districts, your total population divided by 6, that's the 16,700. The Supreme Court lays out the formula then to meet constitutional standard. And that is you take the lowest district and the deviation from that perfect 16,700, that percentage, and then you take the highest district above that, and that percentage difference. So if your lowest district is 4% and your below and your highest district is 4% above, then that's an 8% deviation, which is within the 10% deviation that the Supreme Court has said is appropriate. I don't remember the exact number that we calculated for the deviation, but it is in compliance with the constitutional standard.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Chingula?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
The next item is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance adopting the Nampa Districting Committee's recommended Nampa Districting Plan as the final Nampa Districting Plan. So does this, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules. So we'll go ahead and read it, and then we can go from there.
An ordinance enacted by the Napa City Council finding that the City Council districting plan adopted by the Redistricting Committee meets the criteria set forth in Idaho Code Section 50-707A, adopting the final City Council districting plan, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Mayor Kling, I'll make the motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Brunner?
Yes.
Chingula?
Yes.
Bauer? Reynolds?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
So that concludes our public hearings for the evening. We're going to go back to item 611 on the agenda. This is an action item. This is to authorize Finance and Human Resources trustees to sign the Third Amendment to the City of Nampa Employee Welfare Benefit Trust Agreement that allows flexibility in the titling of the Health Trust trustees.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
I'm sorry.
Roll call for 612.
Yes.
611.
Chingula?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer? Reynolds.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
With that, there is no unfinished business, and there is not an executive session. So I believe that concludes our agenda for this
That's what I
evening.
said, 8 o'clock tonight.
Good job.
8:01.
And I would stand for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.